We also have in competition here in this definition phase, Solar Orbiter, which is a mission to go to 0.3 AU from the Sun. Very challenging in terms of temperature control, of course, 10 times the solar flux that we have here. But we're learning a lot of lessons from BepiColombo. And so Solar Orbiter is in that competition as well. And I'll show you the end point in a moment on cosmic vision. But I won't say much more about Solar Orbiter. The last of the astronomy missions in the M class, or now it's actually a medium mission of opportunity because it's a contribution to the JAXA mission Speaker. So we would be contributing about 150 million euros here. Speaker is a 3 to 3.5 meter diameter far-infrared observatory, so Herschel scale, but very much more sensitive because it would be actively cooled, the primary mirror, down to 6 Kelvin, whereas Herschel is sitting down passively cooled to much warmer temperatures than that. So therefore much lower background and much more sensitive. Potential European contributions, of course, because of our Herschel experience, we're looking at providing the telescope, but also from member states, the Safari instrument, which is in some ways a very beefed up version of the instruments on Herschel. And of course, these results which you see from Herschel down here, these would be superseded in a great many ways by the results from Speaker. So let me just finish by showing you the L missions. The M missions, as I say, are in competitive definition phase now. The L missions are about a year behind, and we have 3 of those running, and they all depend heavily on international partners, the US, and in this case, also with JAXA, EXO, which is a merging of the former concepts Zeus and CONX on the US side, so a large X-ray observatory. LISA, which I talked about a little bit earlier before, this 5 million kilometer baseline interferometer to measure gravitational waves, to do astrophysics with gravitational waves. And EJSM Laplace, which is a mission to Jupiter 2, probes to Jupiter, 1 to Ganymede and 1 to Europa, and also orbiting around Jupiter as well. So these missions are all in study phase, and that study phase ends towards the end of this year. So the M missions, we are looking in mid-2011 to select 2 from Euclid, Plato, and Solar Orbiter, which will be then implemented as our M1 and M2 missions. And so this time next year, we will know which of the 2 we're flying, and we're looking to launch them in 2017-18. The L missions, we will end the study phase at the end of this year, and then select from those 3 large missions for the first L mission slot to be launched in 2020. Our Science Program Committee, which is effectively our Board of Governors, has not yet decided what it will do with the other 2. We expect to launch all 3 of them at some point, and the question is the timing there. And it also depends very strongly on our partners, but fundamentally on NASA with its astrophysics and its planetary decadal reviews ongoing at the moment. And then the decision to go ahead on Speaker will take place next year, if and when JAXA actually decide to go ahead and implement that mission. Now, one thing which should be of interest to many of you, I hope, in the room, is that we will issue a new call this year. Before we've made the selection on these, in order to keep the flow of missions going, we need to actually put more missions into the pipeline. So we will issue a medium mission call or mission of opportunity. So a ceiling of 450 million ESA contribution will be made later in the autumn. So if you have new ideas, I'd very much like to hear them, and I hope to see proposals put in for that call. So let me finish with a couple of thoughts. I've joined ESA a year ago, and like many of you, as an astronomer, I came in not knowing an awful lot about this, the great breadth of the space science program, in particular the planetary program. But what I've learned in the last year is we have a very robust science mission portfolio, and a lot of exciting science going across the whole wavelength range and across the whole distance range, so to speak, from the solar system and beyond. 17 ESA-led or partner missions, 4 we're currently building, and a whole number under study. One concern that is in the community is that our missions are creeping up larger and larger in size, and our flow is not quick enough in order to be able to train people in the community to come and build these missions in order to be able to get up to speed to build the big ones. It can take, of course, 20 years, as you all know, to build these big missions in many cases. And so there's a discussion ongoing in Europe about how to bring small missions under ESA's umbrella. Typically, we would do this with the member states, but they're not doing very much of that at the moment. and they're asking us whether we can actually look at a way of doing small missions. But ultimately, it would only be done if it makes scientific sense. Are there science questions which we can answer with smaller missions? Two final points. One thing you also learn very rapidly, although you're supposed to wave the flag and talk a lot about the great European science which is happening, which it is, it's also clear that we are in bed in a very, very important way with our international partners and our collaborators. And it's interesting to see world space science, in a sense, being generated in collaboration between ESA, NASA, JAXA, and the Canadians and Chinese and Indians. And lastly, for many of you also here, one of the things which is going to become a very big issue for us soon is our collaboration with ground-based facilities, because all of GAIA, Euclid, and Plato have very large ground-based components in terms of follow-up, but not just follow-up of interesting objects found, but fundamental part of the data set of both Plato and Euclid will be the ground-based part. And so I think we really need to think hard, as we have started doing through the Astronet process in Europe, and then of course in the US, the Decadal Survey, and how to make joint roadmaps and strategies which actually link together in a much more zipped up way. So I hope I've given you a bit of a feel for the program we have, and I thank you for your time this morning.